All right, welcome to another episode of the WP Crowd. Today will be a fun one. I have two legends of the WordPress community with me, so I'm excited to have this conversation. I am, as usual, Roy, RoyBoy789, and yeah, I'm going to start with introductions for today because we have some cool people on. I'm going to start with Sir Tom himself.
So my name is Sir Tom. I've been knighted by the Queen of England. This is brought to you by the Resistance or the Rebellion, depending on what time period you're living in, as well as JavaScript, which was an awesome free t-shirt. You can find me on Twitter at Tom McFarlane. You can pretty much find me on the web at Tom McFarlane, because unlike Roy, I use my name everywhere I go. Hi, Roy.
All right, Carl.
Hi, I'm Xander. I'm brought to you by YMCA, where I'm currently standing post-workout. I write about advanced development topics at carlxander.ca, and you can find me at TwigPress on Twitter.
Can we get, just for all of our viewers or listeners, or how this thing fleshes out, what is the significance of TwigPress?
Oh my God. It was back in the day. It was back in, oh my God, I can't remember what year, but it was before Timber. So I don't know if you two know what Timber is. It's basically they built a team framework on top of the Twig templating engine. And I really wanted to do that when Twig came out, and I just kind of used that handle. And,
Sorry, was that a team framework?
I despise you, Roy, right now.
I do not. I don't make fun of people's
my THs.
And for anybody who is watching, if Carl's face looks familiar, you might have seen Carl Board. Yeah, it's the same Carl.
Yeah, it's the more popular version of me.
Yes.
I don't know if it's popular.
Oh my God, the number of people that introduced themselves at WordCamp US, they were like, "Where's Carl Board?" And I'm like, "Hi, I'm also Carl."
And then you were walking around with that thing, taking not selfies, but people wanted a picture with you and your own board.
Yes, it was pretty impressive.
Yeah,
it's pretty impressive.
That is a WP Crowd item.
Memorabilia.
Yeah. WP Crowd did purchase that and make it to sponsor WordCamp
Ottawa,
Ontario, right?
And because I wasn't there.
Yeah, so none of us had a presence at WordCamp Ontario, so instead of having a booth, we just had Carl Board sitting there.
I didn't know anyone lived in Ontario.
Well, yes, most of Canada lives in Ontario.
I mean, I thought you were in Ottawa, like way north.
Yeah. It was WordCamp Ottawa, not WordCamp Ontario.
Oh, wow.
Okay. It's not very good at Canadian.
It's all Canada. It's just like
it's Canada.
It's just like United States younger cousin. I'm kidding.
Twice removed.
I'm not a nationalism. I'm not a jerk. I'm just messing.
We have California and New York, and then like everything else in between. For Canada,
we're the better CA.
It's Vancouver and Montreal, and then everything in between.
We're the better CA.
Yeah.
All right. You're at the YMCA. Okay, enough of this. Roy, Foster, moderate this thing.
So, we were going to talk about enterprise and WordPress, but seeing as how I'm the only enterprise level developer here, and admitted to me a little bit earlier before we started recording that he is no longer in the enterprise realm. One thing that I thought we should switch on to, or pivot, if you will, as that is an interesting conversation, is that Tom, myself, and Carl are all developers. We're all at completely different, I don't want to say different stages of life, but we're different stages of developer, or
we have different life philosophies.
Yes. We have
different, but some intersect.
Yeah.
We have we're very similar in a lot of regards, but also at the same time we choose to be different developers. And this is going to be interesting for people who are just coming into development. So maybe this is part of our level up as a developer series, finding yourself as a developer. how to know who you
Or
are
as a person.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, as a person, absolutely.
but like who you want to be as a developer, because there's clearly three different tracks right here of developer, and as you go around the community, these are, let's take designers out of the equation. These are the we are the three types of developers you're going to find. You're going to find me, an employed developer who has a full-time job. Doesn't matter enterprise, not enterprise, but I go to work on a regular basis. I get a paycheck. Tom makes his living. Why don't I just let Tom explain how he makes his living?
Lots of debt and stealing from local banks. I make a living working for my own company, Pressware, and so there's a number of retainers and contracts that I have, and I short it down. It's like not even an elevator pitch. It's like the first, like if there was a stairway, this is like the first two steps. I build custom WordPress solutions for small businesses, and I also offer code review and consulting. Although I have to, over the last year, I've had to really kind of funnel that down into like what is considered consulting. Because if you want to know, does my theme suck? I can't just I can't provide a yes or no. So that's what I do.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a nutshell, you are the freelancer kind of. I would say you're a little bit above a typical freelancer coming in, but like as we see in the WordPress community specifically, there's a whole bunch of consultants out there, and you have kind of been a consultant, and you're now a level up, I would say, from your typical consult. You have bigger projects and stuff. You obviously do.
Yeah, and I do want to mention I do have two contractors that work with me. One's named Eric Dye, for those who are interested, and the other one's is Toby Chappelle, who's over in London. I think if you guys hear the dogs barking in the background, they'll quit in a minute. They're just singing you guys' praises. And then I think Carl knows, I'm pointing because this is what I see on my screen. Carl knows Toby, and Toby's an enterprise developer. Eric is my kind of go-to. He's a WordPress expert, implementer, tech savvy. You throw it at him, he'll figure it out. Me and Toby are the programmers, and then I'm the business administration, project management. But programming is my one true passion. The rest of the stuff is I do because I got to do it.
So you're basically a consultant turned micro agency, if anything.
I think micro agency is a good term. So it's been 6-ish years, which in the US, it's like if you can survive 5 years, then your chances of surviving as a business are exponentially increased. So yeah, it's gone from just me to I like the term micro agency. I don't know if I'd go around and advertise myself as that, but because it's more than just me, and I do have a CPA and payroll taxes and that kind of stuff I got to handle. It's more than there's nothing wrong with freelancing, but it has literally taken me 6 years to get to the point to say, it took me 5 years to get to a point to say, okay, I will give a CPA. You just tell me how much I need to pay you, and I will pay you to do this. And it took me 6 years almost to say, I have got to bring on someone. And then finding someone of the caliber that I was looking for was the second challenge.
All right. And Carl, I don't know if I should ask how you make a living, but what do you do as a developer?
I mean, it's a tricky question, obviously, but I had to answer it quite a few times at US this weekend. So the way I see it at this point in time is I'm really kind of a teacher with a kind of small retainer consulting side, basically funding on the side that funds my teaching, which is like the blog writing, the traveling to work camps and speaking, and just having this opportunity to kind of travel and do that. And all of that is paid mostly through a small consulting retainer that I do with a nonprofit called Global Voices. I also have a paid plugin, but it basically nets me a couple of $100 US a month, which is actually not too bad considering my expenses are about $1,100. Just for living. Obviously it doesn't account traveling and things like that, but I keep my expenses very low so I can really focus on teaching, on really integrating really well with the community. And the goal in the long run is to really, I'm writing my year in review right now. So I call it building trust. So developers really trust other developers. It's just building that trust inside the community so that when I'm done writing the book, which hopefully, knock on wood, next year, that trust can translate to a bit of income, and then I'll see from there. The goal has always been a product. I mean, we met and I had a product, and ironically, I still pitch a bit this product, but it was too advanced for the community, so I just filed back to teaching. So that's kind of what I do right now. You're muted, Roy. Good.
So your end goal is to have a product that you make a living off of.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say like the best example of a person, like a developer / business person that I look up to is like Taylor Orwell of Laravel fame, who basically built a framework and a whole bunch of side products around it that are cool and help the developer community. And really, I always wanted to be a tools person. When I started trying to get my first programming job, for those who don't know, I'm from Montreal, and Montreal is actually a huge gaming development hub. And I'd applied a lot for a tools developer inside those gaming companies because I like the idea of building tools for other devs. So I'm just trying to do that for WordPress. I don't know if that makes sense or that explains the circle. Yeah.
So I'm an avid follower of your blog because we have a lot of the same common interests, and I'm familiar with the ebook that you have. I know that the book that you're writing is separate, but when you're talking about the tools that you're creating, where are these?
Well, right now there's one. Actually, I met Toby through the tool the first tool that I built, which is I have to rebrand it, but it's called like Debuffs for WordPress, and it basically takes a $5 a month droplet from like DigitalOcean and like basically superpowers it with the same tech that you expect from New York Times or WP Engine or any kind of like serious host, and security and all that stuff. So it's basically the only project I can take on at the time. Like now that I've started writing the book a bit more consistently, I'm finding it hard to balance all of that.
I think that finding a way to balance all of the responsibilities that come with working on free plugins that a lot of people will say, to give back to the community. I'll come back to that in a minute. Working on client work, which is important. Some more important than others. No slam there. And then also just either family life or personal life is a very hard struggle. And for me, like case in point, this week, I went back finally, it has taken me 3 years. And I know a lot of people would say there's no excuse for that, but it has taken me 3 years to go back and revamp a plugin that is, I don't know what is considered popular. It's got over 1,000 downloads in the plugin repository versus some that have 10,000 downloads. But this is one that I've gotten a lot of good feedback on. It's on GitHub. It's a super simple plugin, but it's taken me 3 years to go back and update it. That doesn't mean I haven't been twiddling my thumbs. It just means that my priorities are my family and my paid work, my clients, my customers. And I love doing this free stuff and I love writing. Like my blog is not to be underestimated as well, but there's only the cliche, there's only so much hours in the day. B, there is priorities, and C, there is this, and maybe you guys suffer from this too, but like there's self-imposed pressure of, I want to get this done and I want to do it right. And it's self-imposed. And then when you get someone commenting, opening issues or whatever, all of that's appreciated, but it compounds into, and this is not to say guys and girls, please don't stop adding comments and issues, but it's like, it makes the pressure even stronger to where I feel like, oh, I've got to be able to update this plugin or this little tool or whatever. I mean, are you guys, do you know what I mean when I am talking about those kind of things?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I'm I definitely have that to some extent, but at the same time, I find myself loving the idea of just building something and putting it out there. And then as I have, like, that's why I switched primarily. Like, I used to put up stuff in the repo anytime I could. Like, I'm like, cool, small plugin idea, go into the repo. And then I decided that that wasn't the best place for it anymore. I've been a huge GitHub advocate since, so I put everything on GitHub. Even if it's like a one-liner of code that's a little plugin, I will put it up there. And I guess in some ways my hopes are to get more issues and, you know, pull requests out of it. And that would, while it does compound the pressure, it also motivates me. Like when I see someone is actually using my plugin and then throws up an issue with it, I go, hey, someone's actually using this. I should fix it. Like it's not just sitting there in the void, not being looked at or anything. You know, some of my more popular ones that have been out for a long time have issues, have pull requests that come in very occasionally. And the main issue with those is they're, as you can tell from my hat, I'm an Angular fan. And a lot of my Angular stuff is just out of date already. I mean, it's running on an older version, and Angular 2 has now come out basically. And when it comes to time constraints, that's where I find most of my issues. I find that as a developer, and we talked about this, I think 1 or 2 podcasts back. I think I talked about it with Chris and Josh, but or maybe Maxim. But keeping on the cutting edge as a developer used to be something I used to love. I had a huge passion for it. When the first time I was able to say, "Hey, I'm a WordCamp LA," like whatever 2013 or 14, I'm like, "Hey, I'm gonna give a talk about Angular." Everyone's like, "Oh my God, I've never even heard of that," or "Oh my God, this thing is like so brand new. That's awesome." Now it's like I can't even keep up with the Angular community. I can't even keep up with, you know, and there's other developers in the WordPress community that are already more advanced on the Angular front, let's say. So when it comes to the kind of this prioritization, yeah, my issues are all how do I keep up to date with what's coming out? As a JavaScript developer, I think I've just chosen the worst language to be part of because there's no way.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. There's a reason I don't touch it. There's a reason I don't touch it.
I'm gonna go in the other direction and say I disagree, not completely, but JavaScript. So are you two familiar with what has become known as Atwood's law?
Oh yeah,
I've heard of it, but I don't remember it offhand.
Okay. For our viewers who don't know what it is, why don't you explain?
Yeah. Or Carl.
Or Carl and the other viewers. We have Jeff Atwood is on Twitter. Name is Coding Horror. He has run a blog by the same name for as long as some of you have been alive, at least as long as some of you have been developers, myself included. And it is a fantastic blog that I recommend that you follow. Years ago, he wrote something that said, eventually everything that can be written in JavaScript will be written in JavaScript. That is being realized. The problem is that the JavaScript, and this is not a knock against the JavaScript community, because that particular part of the industry is no better or worse than what the rest of us are facing with, say, PHP, and I'm not going down that rabbit hole. But the JavaScript, it's so fragmented. And so when you go to learn Angular, you are going to be an Angular developer. You know JavaScript in the context of Angular, which is kind of weird to say. And it's not lost on me that I just see a JavaScript shirt on my mat here. So I don't even know whatever I'm saying. But anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is I think it's important to learn JavaScript if you have the time, because there are a variety of WordPress and a variety of other CMSs, and even just writing standard web applications are going to use it in terms of Angular or React or jQuery or I mean, my first gateway drug into JavaScript was Prototype, which was part of Rails, which was fantastic, and I still kind of miss it. But I also have a rule of thumb.
Rails had good stuff for JavaScript. I love CoffeeScript. Like,
yeah,
like,
dude, people hate it. I don't, but there's some hatred to that.
I like the syntax a lot better. Like,
Yeah.
more sense to me.
And I've read, there's books and stuff I can recommend on JavaScript, and I think there's talks, and I mean, there's so much you could talk about JavaScript. But the thing is that, even in WordPress alone, since this is a WordPress centric podcast, you've got jQuery, you've got Backbone, you've got. Eventually, you're going to see more React-based applications because of the WordPress REST API. That's my hypothesis, at least. And but the thing is that it's fragmented not only within. There's all these different libraries constantly coming out. There is a standardization. ECMAScript 5, 6, I can't remember. But
they're at ES6 now.
ES6.
Okay, ES6. There's a standard that offers a lot of cool features that not every browser implements, and it's not been at the time. I don't know if it's even been finalized. This is how far behind I am on keeping up with so much of this. So I might be actually helping Carl's point more than my own. But the thing is that, what I was going to say earlier is that my rule of thumb is this: when something new for JavaScript comes out, wait 1 year. If it's still around, then use it. But don't jump on the bandwagon. I don't think you should jump on the bandwagon just jump on it because it's new and shiny. Don't be that moth to a flame. And that's something that I think, at least that I apply to a number of different technologies in what we do now. But it has taken me, this might be embarrassing for some of you who are watching this. It's taken me like a decade to figure that out because I've lost so much time on things that disappear or that become vaporware or that are never adopted.
My burn was MongoDB. That was where I got burned.
That's a given. Everyone gets burned on MongoDB.
But I'm just gonna dial it back just a sec for the GitHub stuff because for me, I only have one really active project, and it's actually like grown. Like I did a talk in San Diego just to promote it, and it's grown popular enough that I have a lot of tickets coming in, and it's just this fall, like I've tried to balance it, like Tom was talking, life balance. I used to not take a lot of time for myself inside my own home. Like my trick was to get out of the house to have time for myself. And I've been doing that a bit because I got addicted to World of Warcraft again. But it cut a bit on that time, and it's a bit demoralizing when you see tickets come in and you can't take care of them and they pile up. Like I don't know for viewers or anybody, Roy or Tom, like are familiar with the broken window syndrome, or theory is basically if you want to cut crime in a city, you fix all the broken windows because when things start looking dilapidated, they grow worse and worse. So it's very common in code too. Like you do your code very nicely and then you kind of let it slip a bit, and the next thing you know, your code base's a mess. It's very common there. So I feel a bit the same way with the project. If I let the tickets kind of pile up or don't close them or nobody answers, or I'm kind of learning as a maintainer how to deal with that. It's pretty time consuming overall, but I really want this project to succeed. So I'm kind of trying to put myself more time into it now.
Talking about the broken window theory. I want to relate that very basically as an equivalent to what we call tech debt. I feel like
yeah, absolutely.
I feel like and in enterprise, and this is especially apparent in the enterprise realm, as tech debt, as the percentage of tech debt increases, right, per all your code. I definitely feel, and it bugs me really bad because I'm definitely I'm not innocent to any of this. But as a person who sees massive amounts of tech debt, I sometimes push out code because and it's not up to the greatest caliber because I'm like, well, this is now bad code here, and I'm trying to meet a deadline, and so I'm going to push out maybe not the best code, not the worst code. I'm going to push out working code, and instead of going backwards and fixing something that could make my code better, like a function that would, go fix another function that my function is relying on, make that one better so my code could be better. I'm like, all right, here, my code works, that's it. And I think from where I am as a developer compared to where you are, Carl, you might have the time to continuously keep up to date with your code. And yeah, you might not fix every ticket right when it opens, but when you do work on it, you're going to go, I'm going to put in the best code possible. When I get a ticket, I have to put out the code and make sure it gets out there not as quickly as possible, but in a timely fashion, because obviously I have stakeholders.
I mean, this would have been a good enterprise discussion back then if we had done this, but I can definitely talk a lot about that in an enterprise context, how to deal with that, how to deal with the PMs and all the different constraints and the clients. We were kind of discussing that last podcast I was on. Like, it's hard to arrive to a client and say, like, listen, I can save you hundreds of hours down the road if you let me put in 30 hours now. And they're like, well, I have only budget for this right now. Like, please do it right now. And then you just, the technical debt comes from that. Anyways, I don't want to tangent into enterprise necessarily. I was just thinking, Tom's going to talk real soon, but I was thinking of a project that was really popular, and Tom had the plug-in boilerplate. So I don't know how it was to manage that actually back in the day, because you're not taking care of it anymore.
Actually, Tom, before you answer that, I kind of want to pivot back to our kind of original discussion of, again, our three different types of developers. One thing I asked Carl kind of, I asked him, and as he said so, was I asked him his end goal. And his end goal is to be a product, or to build a product, and that's how he'd make his living. Tom, I'm curious, from your point of view, I mean, are you going to retire and still run an agency? Do you have another goal in mind for, the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
It's interesting that you asked me this because I had the pleasure of attending Brian Krogsgaard's Post Status Publish, and one of the sessions was about mergers and acquisitions. Now, that sounds like a lot of big talk for a micro agency. I am not of the mindset, where I want to sell my company. I have no desire to do anything than what I'm doing right now. I have no desire to change that. I love what I'm doing. And maybe this will segue into a little bit more of a conversation here at the tail end. But no, in short, I don't want to really change what I'm doing. And if I ever do, I don't know if I'll try to sell a company or just morph what I'm doing now into something new. I'm in a completely different world than what some of the bigger players are. And I could talk more about tech debt and the enterprise, but I feel like that is too much of a tangent. So no, I don't plan on starting a new company or trying to cash out on this one or anything like that. I got some advice from a good friend this weekend, or no, I just asked a question, what would you even sell an agency for? Because people are all the time talking about multiples and things like that. And an agency can be sold for 1 to a 1.5 times X multiple, I think. But I don't have a desire to do any of that. I love what I'm doing too much.
Kind of a question that I think a lot of people would want to know, and it's kind of interesting to me, because as an agency, as a freelancer, when I do freelance work, I'm not a person who does ongoing maintenance work. Is that something that you have as part of your company? Do you have recurring billing clients?
I do. I think generally this is going to sound so condescending, but I just call them retainers. And I have...
That's the technical term that everybody uses
Yeah,
for.
it's
That's
fine.
what I use.
Yeah, but I don't want to come in and be like, well, it's actually called a retainer, Roy, and
Yeah.
you're not getting your terms right.
Well, I mean, I'm curious from okay, so for me as an from the thought process of a micro agency is that me as a person, when I do consulting work, I love building a project and then handing it off and then going finding another project. And maybe it's because I have the luxury, I guess, to do that because I have a steady paycheck coming in, right? So if a few months go by and I don't have a project, I'm still paying my mortgage and everything. And most of my work that I do is more passion and fun. I do it for fun. I do it as a hobby, if anything, and just happen to make money off of it. So if for whatever reason that became what I wanted to do, right? My passion turned into, and I said, okay, I'm going to quit my enterprise level job, and I'm just going to do freelance work. The moment that I stop, right? The moment that I don't have a project and I don't have something, I no longer have income, scares the crap out of me, right? So I think it's interesting to do the retainer thing. I've never succeeded with it in the past, which is why I went from being a freelancer full-time to taking my first like low-level, I don't even call it enterprise. It was just working at a small business. And I realized that having a steady paycheck was kind of nice, and it allowed me to do, it allowed me to spend a little more time learning stuff like Angular on the side. And
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, like the retainer is exactly for that. I don't want to have to deal with the mental headspace of a pipeline of clients coming in. I think like this has been a very common thread, although not necessarily mentioned, but a lot of our lifestyles are based on different trade-offs that we're willing to do within different contexts. For example, for me, I'm okay living off almost nothing, but the retainer for me is pretty important because again, the consulting is not what I'm trying to do. Like if I wanted to get into consulting, I probably could do that without too much trouble.
You do it for free.
I don't do it for free, but I don't like like I have a weird relationship with money, as Roy pointed out, and multiple times. I'm very aware of how much I'm worth, and I won't undersell myself, but I just don't like that kind of conversation. So the retainer also saves me this kind of conversation of having to negotiate and all this stuff, because I'm a stubborn bastard. So sorry for the language, but like I wouldn't budge very easily, and because I don't have a lot of financial I don't have a sort of Damocles basically over my head pressuring me to accept a deal, I wouldn't budge very easily. So it always makes, I don't know, I think like having come into the US community a lot this year, like I know these conversations are much more common. Like I think we Canadians keep this a bit more polite and less businessy, like in work camps, like, but I'm still not used to that as much. So, but yeah, just to go back to the idea of trade-offs, I think what's really important here is like each of us has kind of trade-offs. Like Roy likes the idea of picking up a new project, and I would love that. Like I've had people come up to me with really interesting projects, but I'm like, okay, once this is done, now I have to find a new project, and that kind of mental overhead is tough. Roy, Tom wants to.
I will give you.
I know.
You see this gray hair?
Yeah.
4 of them are from you. Not my kids. From
not
you.
You.
I'm kidding. Yeah. For anyone watching.
No, but
Carl and I are.
But like working with you would be awesome. But again, like to go back to this idea of trade-off, like if this doesn't work out, or you run out of work or things like that, like I like the idea that I have something somewhat stable, like a foundation. For me, the foundation is somewhat important because I've lived actually, I mean, I'm talking a lot right now, but for those who don't know, I've lived in a living room for 4 years to pay very minimal rent. Like it was a huge living room, but it was still like something that I did. And I've lived off like my savings for like a couple of years where I didn't have this retainer on a very stable basis. So I'm familiar with those aspects, and it's just, it not necessarily weighs on you, but like, obviously, like as you're losing money and you're getting closer, like, oh, I won't be able to achieve this kind of dream or goal that I set for myself. The retainer kind of helps with that. So I'm just a bit more worried of going back to this feast or famine scenario. Even if I get paid less, the stability to me is worth it, and that's the trade-off. And I'm gonna stop here.
I think it's primarily a personality thing, right? Like you are okay with that. I stopped being,
Of course.
I stopped being okay with living on a couch when I turned like 23. So it's just
It wasn't a couch. It wasn't a couch. We turned it into a
He just said
studio.
a living room.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, like,
I'll show you pictures.
as my life
It doesn't do it justice.
yeah, as my life progressed, I wanted my quality of what I consider quality of life, right? Like quality of life is totally subjective, and I don't want to be I am the one person from California here, but I don't want to be that person from California.
Oh, the one person from California.
Yeah.
Okay, the one guy who really knows how it is.
Yeah, I don't want to be. I'm not super materialistic, but I love having stuff on some level. And I know that's an oxymoron.
That makes no sense. Those two sentences don't work together, Roy.
I don't know how to explain it. Like I don't need.
Well, what kind of stuff? Like perishables?
Yes, I love
Lots
having
of Disney stuff.
I love having canned food.
I thought no, canned food's preservatives.
Sorry, that's
not
non-perishable. I don't know. Let's just say this: I like having the luxury of being able to buy stuff. How about that?
That works. I mean,
I choose not to buy everything I see, or I choose to be, let's say, conscious about what I'm spending my money on.
Yeah.
But I like having the luxury of being able to buy something when I want to buy it, and it goes back to being a kid, right? Like when I was a kid and I got my first job when I was 14, I was like, I really want an Xbox, right? And then it was like, this is like original Xbox. It was like this big. It was black.
Yeah.
And I love that thing. Like I saw it on, in a Best Buy or Fry's or whatever. And I'm like, I got to have this thing. But I was like, I don't have money for this. I don't have a job. So I got a job. And, my first week's pay, granted, I was a teenager and first week's pay was nothing, but I had no expenses in my life. And my parents were still covering my gas. So I was like, F it, I'm going to buy an Xbox. So I did. And I just, I like having that luxury. I asked Carl what his goal was. Tom, I asked you what your goal was. My goal, I'm not really sure what my end goal is yet. But I like the opportunity of having two of them, right? So I can still spend my time working on clients and getting to that point. I would like to be more like Carl. I mean, everyone wants to be more like Carl, but I want to do the product
I wouldn't agree with that necessarily.
I want to do the product thing. I mean, that would be kind of an awesome dream, right? Having that product that maybe it doesn't need to be $1 billion company, but it makes my living, and it makes
lifestyle business. Lifestyle business is the term.
I'm happy where I'm at now too as an enterprise developer, and I can always go down that path as well. And I think people that are coming into development now, if you're watching this and you're not sure which path you want to get on, keep in mind that as a small business or enterprise level developer, where if you're working for a Fortune 100 company, you can kind of create your own path and your own destiny kind of in that way. You can kind of shape your own future, and and kind of the sky's the limit, and you could jump around. I mean, I was a full-time consultant for quite a while till one time, a couple times I couldn't pay rent, so I was like, maybe I should get a full-time job just to compensate me enough that I can pay rent while I bring up my business. Ended up stopping that altogether, and now I'm coming back into it, consulting again, but really it's just a passion thing at this point, and who knows what I'm going to do in a year from now.
Yeah. I mean, it's a time and focus kind of trade-off, again, to go back to the idea of
and life, and it's not even considering life that's going on in the background, right? Like somewhere over here is family growing and extra expenses. You know, my stupid plumbing decided to back up, so now I got to do some plumbing work, and you know, that kind of stuff is just back here, not even discussing it, but it's there, right? So I gotta be mindful of it. And you know, c'est la vie, that's my life, and that's how I choose to live it. Carl's completely different, and then, you know, Tom's,
yeah, I'm very less is more.
yeah. And you know, again, we all intersect, we all have our passions, and we all intersect in a lot of areas. But if you are, I want to put this out there, someone who's trying to choose which path they want to get on, and if they're still trying to figure out who they are as a developer, like, you know, you can have that commonality between no matter what path you want to go on, and there's always going to be kind of ground level stuff that's always going to be the same no matter what path you're on. It's just, you know, who you are and who you choose to be. I think the best thing that we could say, and I'm only going to make an assumption here. The best thing I can say is that even though we're three, let's say, different developers, we're all happy at who we are right now, like in the current moment. And that's like, and I hate to be
That's all I could ask for.
Yeah, I hate to be preaching philosophical, but
no, but that's not I don't know. I think it's kind of practical. Like it's like my thing we were talking about slightly before we hit record is that I am more like I want to be happy, and what makes me happy is doing the things that I'm doing right now, working for small businesses, building custom solutions in WordPress, having the ability or learning a new technology, being able to apply that in a project, talking with people like you, and also taking care of my family. And like my ultimate goal is to be happy, to be out of debt, you know, like, and be out of debt, I mean like pay off a mortgage, things like that. And like the desire for some, I don't know, a high-end vehicle or something. I mean, if that's someone's dream, go for it. But I want to be happy. I want to be able to hang out with my kids. I want to have their future planned for, and I want to enjoy what I'm doing. That's not to say that I fly by the seat of my pants. For any of you who have met me personally, you know, I'm super type A. So if you ask me what's the status of X, Y, or Z, I could probably rattle off more information that you want to know. But I'm not worried about, or I'm not focused on some of the other things that other people might focus on. Like what Carl's focused on is different than me in some ways. Same with you, Roy. You've got your full-time job, and that's great. And you've got your your side work, and that's great. It took me, you know, you were talking about retainers earlier. I used to not have retainers. I would just have a pipeline. And it was very, very, very nerve-wracking for the first few years. I think my whole first year of business was, I can't explain the stress and the anxiety that induced. But it's been 6 years, and I'm really happy. And the nice thing about being able, like when you have a retainer, that doesn't mean you're just in maintenance mode all the time. That's one of the things that, like you were expressing with technical debt. When you have a retainer or when you have a pipeline of work, even though you might be working in WordPress, not that that's a bad thing. We've all chosen that in some degree. There are new problems to solve. Or you might say it's the same problem dressed up in a different way. So one level up from that is there's a new problem domain to learn. And so if you're someone who loves learning, who loves getting better at whatever it is that you're doing from a programmatic standpoint, if you're someone who wants to be able to I don't know if set the course of your life or just have more control of your life or whatever, it is completely possible to do. Like you don't have to get to this certain age and then say, all right, I am at this age. I need to have my 9 to 5. I need to have my suit and tie. I need to have my picket fence and so on. There's nothing wrong with any of that. That is exactly what someone wants, go for it. For some of it's sitting in a t-shirt that was free at a conference and gym shorts with earbuds, having a notebook full of issues for a project that I got to work on after this call. And I'm completely happy. I am completely content.
Yeah. I was walking through the Imagineering campus with Rachel, Bama designer, for those who don't know her. I'm sure everyone knows her. And the only thing we were having a very kind of a similar conversation, I think, or talking about people and their occupations. And one thing that we lucked out on is that for the most part we love what we do. Like, people, it's super rare that someone doesn't complain about their day-to-day work or their boss or whatever. And yes, sure, maybe I have a gripe here and there, but I really don't. I mean, I love what I do. I love where I do it now. And I have no complaints.
Disney's hiring.
Yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by Disney.
Yeah. Not brought to you by anyone. Don't want to say
just Disney careers.
Nope. Can't say that.
This is brought to you by Carl Careers.
Yeah, Carl. It brought to you by Carl Board.
Carl Board Careers.
I love what I do, and I'm lucky that I found my passion early in life. And yeah, as Tom said, it's not about, okay, I'm this age now, I gotta have my 9 to 5, because even though I found what I liked, my passion very early on in life, I think I was an engineer, and I was like paying my tuition by building websites, and suddenly it dawned on me that I enjoyed building websites more than going to calculus. So I'm like, I should make this my how I make money. And it just took me a lot longer from that point to where I am now. That was, and that's fine. My path to becoming a enterprise level developer was a lot longer than someone just coming out of college, getting, an entry level position at a company and saying, okay, I'm going to work my way up the ladder now.
Yeah.
I mean, I still have an entrepreneurial spirit inside, so that's why I'm always doing side work. I'm always building plugins that I put out there because, who knows what will stick one day. But that's just my path. And you never know that. I see people in the WordPress community specifically that are in their 50s coming out of their like 20, 30-year long career going, man, I'm way happier building and consulting on websites than I was being whatever they were before. And it is what it is, but that's the passion. So,
I mean, I'm the oldest one here, and I'm the one that fails the most at adulting. So,
your adulting is just a different definition of adulting.
I know. I'm just being self-deprecating right now.
Yeah,
I was just finding it funny.
I mean, your definition of adulting is what I define 21, but that is
which used to be like 17.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But no, I think I'm just thinking real quick that I think it's an introspection exercise. It's not. I say it very easy, like it's an easy thing to do, but I think that's where a lot of us can get our contentment from, is the fact that we've taken some time to think about, like, we have a long life ahead of us. Like, where do we want to be heading towards? Like, how can we make sure that we wake up in the morning, not necessarily always happy, but as happy as we can about like the situation that we're in. And if I had to really recommend something to anyone listening, that would be it. Taking a step back and thinking, where do you want to be with this career? If programming is even for you.
Yes.
But because I know for a fact that a lot of people have gone into the WordPress community, just not necessarily I shouldn't say community, but just into WordPress because it pays the bills and things like that. But maybe at the end of the day, if you have some flexibility, if you're willing to make some of the trade-offs, not necessarily as crazy trade-offs as I've done, but just thinking about that would be my kind of takeaway to give you. is that with the internet now, it is possible with a lot of hard work and passion to find your little place that will make you happy. And if it's not with programming in WordPress, then it doesn't have to be. But take the time and think about it.
Awesome. So I'm gonna wrap it up here because I think we're already over our allotment of time, but
way over.
But it's been a good conversation.